Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wen-Ling too, and I'm the social scientist from Department of Public Administration, National Zhenji University, Taiwan. And I'm pleased to present my research here to bring your attention to the supplier's responsibility in the electronic sector. We have noticed that many brand name companies have committed themselves to reduce the environmental impacts of their products by requiring their suppliers to meet all the local laws and the brand's guidelines. Companies like Intel and Apple ask their suppliers to meet the environmental standard to avoid negative environmental impacts on the environment. Electronic Industry Citizenship Coalition, also called EICC, and other international certifications programs also demonstrated the similar spirit. However, I think there is still a big gap between the legal compliance and inconsistent auditing process for this CSR commitment. Therefore, it is necessary to focus on the local performance of contract manufacturers to realize the real sustainable practice. In this paper, I'm arguing that the multiple stakeholder approach is crucial to suppliers' responsibility. My research investigated the notorious controversies surrounding the ASE illegal wastewater discharge issues in southern Taiwan. In case you don't know what is ASE, it's the world's biggest chip assembler and tester. And on October 1st, 2013, one of the ASE flagship plants located in Kaohsiung City of Taiwan, named K7, was found to have discharged large amounts of untreated wastewater into the nearby Hojing River. The investigation conducted by local environmental officials indicate that the wastewater contained high level of nickel and highly acidic toxic substances with pH 2.63, suspended solid level of 96 milligram per liter, and chemical oxygen demand level of 135, all of which have far exceeded the standards provided by Water Pollution Control Act in Taiwan. It was also reported that some crews in the plant used the tap water to dilute the wastewater before the inspection by Kaohsiung city government. And the picture is a documentary film called Viewing Taiwan, first revealed the color of the Hojing River, and that called attention for the ASE misconduct. So the local community accused the ASE of its irresponsible wastewater discharge that have affected 1,390 hectares of the rice farmland, as well as fish farming and offshore fishing industry downstream of the Hojing River. As a result of this toxic discharge, ASE was fined 600,000 Taiwanese dollar, approximately US dollar $19,000, and ordered to shut down K7 on December 20, 2013 by the Kaohsiung City government. ASE illegal wastewater dumping case shocked the society because it has long been considered a green business and had been rewarded with numerous CSR recognition, as the chart shows here, including ISO 14001 certification, Sony Green Partner, and Social Accountability 8000 International Standard. It is also given by many domestic CSR awards. So ironically, it is through the K7 incident that the ASE notorious environmental records surfaced to the public. According to both Taiwan EPA and Kaohsiung City government, ASE has violated several environmental laws at least 29 times between 2011 and 2013. The non-compliance records was astonishing because approximately over 8 violations occurred each year. Even in 2014, when ASE K7 was ordered to stop operation, the other ASE plants were still violating a number of environmental regulations and received 23 violations notice by January 2015. We then puzzled why a series environmental violators got so many CSR recognition, and how the ASE local government and the local civic groups respond to the incident, and what are the gaps between the actual local practice and the institutional codes of CSR. What lessons can be drawn from this case to improve supply chain responsibility and international governance for the global electronic industry? And we investigate the document from various sources, including first CSR reports and the issue statement, brand name companies' reaction, government's official responses, citizen groups' press release, as well as news clipping to gather the evidence and draw a full picture of the controversy. By involving in CSR campaign of responsible technology, we also had a chance to talk to the representative from the brand name companies and civic groups. So the research first questioned whether the conduct of ASE in response to its wastewater disputes were meant to fulfill its CSR. And we found that since ASE environmental violation records have been revealed and the K7 was ordered to suspend operations, ASE started numerous campaigns to restore its public image. On December 16, 2013, ASE issued an advertising statement on the Wall Street Journal. ASE then managed to resume operation for its K7 plant. It filed an administrative appeal against the cessation order issued by the Kaohsiung City government. After 2 rounds of audit meetings, the Kaohsiung City government approved ASE's bids to perform trial operation. And this is the advertisement ASE issued on Wall Street Journal. It says, ASE firmly denies all of the allegations that the company had deliberately discharged contaminated wastewater and promised to invest more in water recycling. ASE also emphasized that some of its plants have been rewarded with green certifications. It will also contribute at least $100 million Taiwanese dollar per year for the next 30 years to Taiwan's environmental protection efforts. However, local perceived ASE effort as irrelevant to improve its environmental management. The local civic group demand ASE to invest in zero wastewater discharge facility and also make its effluent comply with the irrigation water standard, restore the river's ecosystem and from the damage that it has caused, and provide compensation for the losses suffered by farmers and the fishermen, but none of which is within the ASE promise. And this picture shows a local community. The local people require ASE to restore the Hojing River. They ask that donation by ASE should be used for river pollution prevention, investigation, and restoration, rather than LED lights installation for elementary school, which ASE did, and that did not even meet the school's needs. So let's turn the eye on the government side. The civic group and local community have requested to participate in the audit meetings where the discussion of facility inspection and resumption operation took place. However, The Environmental Bureau refused the public request, stating that this case is related to wastewater treatment, which is the technical issue that relies on professional judgment and assessment. And because it is not an issue to ask for the public opinion, the Bureau cannot accept the request for the public participation in the ASE auditing meetings. The statement shows that the government has no intention to make the audit process transparent and accessible to the public, or actively make the company's non-compliance records public. On July 30, 2014, the first review of the trial operation was carried out and conditional resumption of the business was approved. On October 20, 2014, the ruling was made by Kaohsiung District Court that ASE was found guilty of releasing untreated industrial wastewater into the Hojing River, in addition to the fine of 3 million Taiwanese dollar, that's around 95,000 US dollar, imposed on the company. The K7 plant director and 3 other employees were given suspended sentences ranging from 16 to 22 months for violation of the Waste Disposal Act. It is clear that the cost of violating of the Water Pollution Control Act and a fine of $3 million have no deterrent effect on the company with an annual income of over 200 billion. The local government avoids taking up the issues of ecosystem restoration or compensation for farmers and the fishermen. The central government did not recall tax incentive awarded to ASE, but state that a longer shutdown might cause negative impact on the country's GDP. So how the brands respond? The brands inclined to uphold local compliance as a way to evaluate the CSR commitment of the suppliers without comprehensively scrutinize the laws and standards. In particular, when the local laws do not provide strong mechanism to implement information transparency or engage stakeholders in impartial investigation. The resourceful and politically influenced players, such as ASE, can easily manipulate its way to gain local compliance. It is evident that the brands did not learn about ASE persistent environmental violation records until the local group CET organized the data and open discussion internationally with ASE major buyers. Although the brands address information disclosure and stakeholder engagement as part of their CSR commitment, such commitment do not extend to their suppliers as part of supply chain responsibility. Brands do not push their suppliers to address information disclosure and stakeholder engagement. When required of taking action to tackle ASE controversies, the brand and company focus on technical assistance and compliance issue to dismiss the voice of local stakeholders. So with that stance, brands have failed to comprehensively realize the CSR practice of their suppliers. And CET expressed its disappointment that the claim made by the brands, quote, "We are committed to environmental responsibility and recognizing the stakeholders' rights." Quote, "It's merely an empty talk. In fact, despite ASE misconduct, Apple still placed a large order with ASE, which became one of the Apple's top 200 suppliers in 2015. So it is evident that the fabless brands were unable to monitor or document the actual CSR practice of their suppliers without engaging the local concerned stakeholders. However, the notion of the stakeholder engagement to monitor the CSR practice have been neglected by the local government as the action is neither authorized by the law nor supported institutionally by the brands to supervise supply chain responsibility. By leaving out the local citizen group in the investigation process, the firm made little progress to fundamentally change their practice and easily went back to their old practice as usual. In reality, ASE has failed to take responsibility to restore the river ecosystem or compensate the local laws. So if the concerned stakeholders can actively engage in the investigation process, the resumption of the Case 7 may be more reliable and legitimate. The multi-stakeholder approach that matters in this case because it fills the void of insufficient regulations and incompetent agencies. Apple's partnership with the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs to assess suppliers' violation records in China has proved to be effective. The concerned citizen and the civic group have been standing in the front line to detect the problems and protect the local environment. Excluding them from the auditing process will only weaken the environmental management and the supply chain responsibility efforts. Drawing the lesson from this case study, we argue that it is necessary to improve the multi-stakeholder approach throughout the supply chain management process in order to close the gap between supply chain responsibility and their actual practice at the local level. Furthermore, the information disclosure rules and stakeholder participation principles should be emphasized and reinforced as a part of supply chain's obligation. The research is sponsored by the Ministry of Science and Technology Taiwan, and thank you for your attention.
So a question.
Yeah.
So it seems like the local government won't allow public input, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you recommend for people to do? So obviously the government doesn't seem interested in changing its ways. What can just a regular concerned citizen do?
Mm-hmm. So you are right. I think the biggest pressure will be, from the brand name, the upstream, the international purchaser, rather than the government, because the government, I think, what government respond, the way they respond is, kind of to cover up,
Mm-hmm.
like what happened at the local, and if there is no local group kind of reveal the whole thing, the government will just kind of dilute the issue. So I think there are two strategies. So one is to cover, because this is kind of an international
Mm-hmm.
I would say the supply chain is quite kind of international issue, and the government also compete. Different countries also compete for gaining the business. So there's one thing, of course, that that we can still ask the government to improve the law. And in this case, actually, to some degree, the government changed the law. The pressure by the legislators and the civic group, they kind of raise the penalty, because as you can see, how low the penalty was. Yeah. So with this incident, and the government changed the law, and the law just passed this year. I think in March. Yeah, they kind of raised the penalty. So that's one, I think, the achievement for the local group. And the other is that I think the local group also kind of involved in the international network and trying to, I must say, negotiate or make a pressure to the brand name companies. And I think that still would be more effective, the pressure from the brand name company, and ask for the supply chain responsibility. And in this case, for example, the ASE did talk to the local group, not because they see how important the local group is, because they got the pressure from the Apple and Intel, and they asked them to communicate with the local group. So they are willing to do something, or to invest more in their wastewater treatment facilities.
Great, thank you.
So thinking about how maybe the brand owner has the most leverage as far as purchasing. There is this corporate social responsibility, right? So do you think the problem is more that CSR isn't as comprehensive as it should be in reviewing these things, or is it just not being enforced or not being known, right, about these violations?
You know, like I think we were curious how, you know, the ASE can get so many CSR recognition, you know, in the past few years, and I'm not sure if, you know, the certification, you know, the program that would not, because I think they are kind of, I think they probably are fitted by their CSR report, the ASE CSR report, and which is, you know, like kind of selectively, you know, present, you know, how good they are, without, you know, like really kind of investigate the local records. Or as I say, you know, the local records probably is not available. For example, the language barrier, or you know, the government just make it uneasy to find those records. For example, when I you know, show the violation records, it's really difficult to find. We need to, you know, like investigate, you know, in many ways to find the whole records. So so I think that those are problems. That's why, you know, in this paper, that we argue that it's important to involve the local stakeholders in order to learn the real situation, how their supplies practice locally. As I say, you know, like the Apple's representative told us that they didn't know, you know, like what's happening before, you know, like, you know, what's their records until the local group revealed.
Right.
Yeah. So did I answer your question?
Okay. This is a very interesting case. So I'm just wondering if have you ever explored the motivation of different stakeholders?
The motivation of the different stakeholders? You mean the different stakeholders, for example, like
why they are involved and what you want, and finally what you get?
Okay. Okay, I should say that okay, for the stakeholders, for the ASE, you know, for ASE, I think the motivation for them to get improved because they want the, you know, the business order, you know, from the international purchaser. As I say, it's you know, like the largest semiconductor, you know, packaging and test provider, and so they have an incentive, you know, like to improve their practice if there's a pressure from the brand name company. But I found that it's really difficult for the company, for the brand name company to kind of you know, ship the order. You know, although you know, the local people demand, you know, if they don't get if the factory you know, didn't get improvement, the international purchaser should not you know, place the order on that company. But I think that's also difficult because, as I said, in 2015, ASE became the top supplier, 200 suppliers for the Apple, and but Apple. The incentive for Apple is probably not to kind of start the business with the company like ASE. Instead, they insist that we should help the company to do the right thing, So I think there's I don't know if this is an incentive, but they you know, still trying to convince the ASE to do the river restoration, and I don't know if that will happen. And for the local community and the you know, citizen group, I think it's clear that ASE demonstrates the kind of the iceberg of the company's CSR practice at the local. If there's no pressure, no matter where it's from, and the local environment got suffered. So I think that's I think that's also the motivation for the local group to kind of amplify this issue and make the law change.
Any other questions?
Well, it seems that a core part of this would be that to properly treat this wastewater would be a cost. Mm-hmm. And the cost would mean that the parts supplied by the supplier would be more expensive to happen. So did that ever get on the table? And then there'd be a debate whether the cost was right or wrong, but then, who would pay for that cost? And it seems like that would be part of the discussion. If you want them to move forward and properly treat the wastewater, somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah. I think it's clear in this case that that people or government ask ASE to pay for it, and because as I say, ASE has a lot of profit, and we just cannot believe. People just get astonished at how this kind of profitable company will do something like this, and I think, as you say, the law is probably the problem, the regulation, because it's not really like a strict, and sometimes you can not tell the good from the bad. Yeah. So in that case, people was the companies are not willing to put the investment in those in wastewater treatment. But so that even the ASE was found guilty from the court, and they didn't say that they will restore the river. Instead, they say they will put some money for the environmental protection efforts, and which is very vague. But in terms of investing in wastewater treatment facility, I think they make some progress.
Interesting.
Let's thank our speaker once again.